Lieutenant Commander Jack Mason stared at the holographic display, his eyes narrowed at the anomaly drifting just beyond Neptune's orbit. The object had appeared 6 hours ago, moving in a way no natural celestial body should. "Run the analysis again," he ordered, his voice steady despite the tension in the command center of Outpost Titan. "Sir, results are consistent. It's artificial and definitely not one of ours," replied Specialist Ryan Cooper, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Mason nodded. "Contact Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Within minutes, Admiral Lisa Reynolds appeared on the main screen, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, her expression grave. "Report, Commander." "Ma'am, we've detected an unidentified object at coordinates 227 to 584 119. It's roughly cylindrical, approximately 30 meters in length. It's emitting unusual radiation patterns and appears to be scanning our system." Reynolds frowned. "First contact protocol is in effect as of now. Approach with extreme caution. I'm dispatching the EDF Horizon to your location." 24 hours later, Mason stood on the bridge of the Horizon as they approached the alien probe. Captain Olivia Martinez commanded the vessel with quiet confidence. "All systems on standby. Weapons hot but not targeted," Martinez said. "Let's not start an interstellar incident on my watch." The probe remained motionless as they approached. It was sleek, constructed of an iridescent metal that seemed to shimmer between purple and green. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Julie Walsh, the exobiologist assigned to the mission. "Beautiful can still be deadly," Mason replied. The probe suddenly pulsed with light. The ship's AI translated. "Incoming transmission." A holographic figure materialized on the bridge, tall, reptilian, with 6 limbs and elaborate armor that glinted with embedded jewels. "Subjects of the insignificant world designated Sol 3. The translation came through. "I am High Commander Vexthor of the glorious Zathraxi Empire. Your system now falls under Imperial jurisdiction. Prepare to receive your planetary governor and tribute requirements." Martinez stepped forward. "This is Captain Olivia Martinez of Earth's United Defense Fleet. We are a sovereign people. We welcome peaceful contact, but reject any claim of authority over our world." The alien's upper limbs made a dismissive gesture. "Your acceptance is not required, merely your compliance. Resistance is futile and will be met with appropriate force." "I strongly advise against threats," Martinez replied, her voice calm but firm. "Humanity has no desire for conflict, but we've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. If forced to defend ourselves, we will." The alien's expression changed slightly, something like amusement. "Your primitive weapons are of no concern to the Empire. We have conquered 800 worlds. Your species will be the 801st. "Then let me be clear," Martinez said. "If you come in peace, we welcome you. If you come in war, we warn you to run." The Zathraxi commander's laughter needed no translation. "Your bravado is noted, human. Prepare for Imperial assessment. Resistance will result in demonstration of power." The transmission ended abruptly. Back on Earth, the United Nations Space Command convened an emergency session. Admiral Reynolds presented the situation to a room full of military and political leaders. "They're technologically advanced, arrogant, and apparently have a vast empire," she concluded. "Intelligence suggests their probe is gathering tactical information." General Sam Harris pounded his fist on the table. "We need to strike first. Show them we're not easy prey. And potentially start a war we might not be able to win." Reynolds countered. "We need more information." President Kelly Warren raised her hand for silence. "We proceed with caution but strength. Mobilize our fleets, activate our defense systems, but make no aggressive moves yet. Captain Martinez will attempt one more diplomatic approach." 3 days later, Martinez led a diplomatic vessel to the edge of the system, where a Zathraxi ship had appeared. The meeting was brief and unproductive. As Martinez returned to her ship, she received an urgent message from Earth. The Zathraxi had launched an attack on Mars colony. The war had begun. The sky above Mars colony turned orange as the first Zathraxi warships pierced the atmosphere. The colonial warning sirens wailed across the dome-covered settlement of New Armstrong, home to 12,000 civilians and a small military outpost. Dr. Alan Foster sprinted through the main lab, shouting evacuation orders. "This is not a drill. All personnel to emergency shelters immediately." On the defense platform above the colony, Lieutenant Kate Williams climbed into her fighter craft. 5 other pilots scrambled to join her, their faces grim but determined. "Echo Squad, this is Lead," Williams said into her helmet comm. "We buy time for the evacuation. Nothing fancy. Hit and fade tactics only." Her small fighter squadron launched into the crimson sky, their ships tiny compared to the massive alien vessels descending toward the colony. Williams swallowed her fear and targeted the lid ship. "For Earth," she whispered, then fired the first human shots in an interstellar war. Back on Earth, Admiral Reynolds stormed into the Crisis Command Center. Screens displayed the attack in real time, transmitted through quantum relays. "Status report," she demanded. "Mars colony evacuation at 30%. An officer replied. "Lieutenant Williams and Echo Squad are engaging the enemy to slow their advance." Reynolds studied the tactical display. "Authorized deployment of the Thunderbolt system." The officer's eyes widened. "But Admiral, that's still experimental." "Those are our people dying up there," Reynolds cut him off. "Deploy it now." On a hidden lunar base, engineers activated the massive rail gun system designed for exactly this scenario. The weapon hummed to life, its barrel extending from beneath the lunar surface. In Mars orbit, Williams watched in horror as 3 of her pilots vanished in bursts of enemy fire. She was running out of options when her comm crackled. "Echo Lead, this is Lunar Command. Clear the area. I repeat, clear the area immediately." Williams yanked her controls, pulling her fighter away from the engagement zone. Moments later, a streak of light shot past her ship. The projectile, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, slammed into the Zathraxi flagship. The alien vessel cracked like an egg, atmosphere venting into space as secondary explosions rippled across its hull. Aboard the commanding Zathraxi vessel, High Commander Vexthor staggered as the ship rocked violently. Warning alarms blared. "Impossible," he hissed. "How did primitives develop such weapons?" His second-in-command checked the damage reports. "High Commander, the Eternal Glory is lost. 3 other ships heavily damaged. The humans have defensive capabilities we did not anticipate." Vexthor's scales darkened with rage. "Retreat to safe orbit. We will regroup and adjust our strategy." In the Mars colony command bunker, Dr. Foster coordinated evacuees onto the last transport ships. The ground shook as alien weapons bombarded the outer domes. "Final group boarding now," he reported over the emergency channel. "We need more time." Lieutenant Williams' voice came through, strained but determined. "You'll get it, Doctor." Her lone fighter darted between Zathraxi ships, drawing their fire away from the escaping transports. Her fuel warning flashed red, ammunition nearly depleted. On Earth, President Warren addressed the United Nations. "Today, unprovoked, the Zathraxi Empire attacked our peaceful Mars colony," she declared. "They have murdered our citizens, destroyed our settlement, and declared by their actions their hostile intent. As of this moment, Earth is at war." The delegates rose in unanimous support, representatives from nations that had been enemies just days before now standing together against a common threat. Meanwhile, on a Zathraxi prison ship, Captain Martins worked to free herself from her restraints. She had been taken captive after the failed diplomatic mission, but had been gathering intelligence. The attack on Mars had distracted her guards. Now was her chance. If she could escape and deliver what she'd learned about Zathraxi weaknesses, humanity might have a fighting chance. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with voices as reports of the conflict between the Zathraxi Empire and Earth spread through the assembled representatives. The enormous circular hall housed delegates from over 300 spacefaring civilizations, most watching the holographic display of battle footage with curiosity rather than concern. "This human resistance is merely temporary," declared Council Elder Mograth, his tentacles waving dismissively. "The Zathraxi will crush them, as they have all others who resist imperial expansion." Xandar, representative of the Lorathi Collective, rose from his seat. Unlike the others, he appeared troubled. "I caution against dismissing the humans so readily," he said. "Our preliminary studies suggest they have developed in isolation, under high gravity, and in a predator-rich environment. Their history is marked by continuous warfare. They may prove unpredictable." His warning went largely ignored as the Council moved to other matters, considering the fate of Earth already decided. They were wrong. Deep within Earth's moon, in a facility unknown even to most of humanity's leaders, Commander Peter Daniels led a special operations team toward a row of sleek vessels unlike any publicly known human craft. "Chimera Squadron," he addressed the 12 men and women before him. "Today we deploy the Wraith-class ships for the first time. These vessels incorporate technology reverse-engineered from 3 different crashed alien craft over the past 80 years. The soldiers stared at the black ships with awe. Their existence had been Earth's most closely guarded secret. "The Zathraxi don't know about these," Daniels continued. "We're going to slip behind enemy lines, gather intelligence, and hit targets of opportunity. Our stealth systems should make us invisible to their sensors." In another classified facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, scientists Nicole Franklin and Ben Howard made final adjustments to a complex array of quantum equipment. "The entanglement is stable," Franklin reported, checking the readings. "We can now communicate instantly across any distance without the Zathraxi intercepting our transmissions." Howard nodded. "This changes everything. Our forces can coordinate perfectly while the enemy remains confused." The quantum communication network went online just as Earth launched its counteroffensive. Aboard the Zathraxi command ship, High Commander Vexthor struggled to understand the reports flooding in. "How did they attack 3 outposts simultaneously?" he demanded. "And why can't we detect their ships until they're firing on us?" His tactical officer shook his head in confusion. "They're using strategies we've never encountered. They hide, strike, and disappear. They target supply lines instead of engaging our fleets directly. Nothing in our combat doctrine addresses these tactics." Vexthor growled in frustration. The humans were not fighting according to any sensible military protocol. Instead of meeting strength with strength, they attacked weakness. Instead of glorious space battles, they used hit-and-run tactics. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but none had fought like this. On Mars, the battle to reclaim the colony began. Lieutenant Williams, now promoted to commander, led the first wave of fighters. Behind them came the ground forces, using terraforming equipment converted to military use. "They're dug in at the main dome," Williams reported. "Conventional approach would cost too many lives." Admiral Reynolds' voice came through the quantum comm. "Use the tunnels." The Zathraxi defenders had secured all visible entry points, posting heavy weapons at each. They never expected an attack from below. Human soldiers, familiar with fighting in the tight confines of spacecraft and space stations, moved through maintenance tunnels with practiced ease. The battle lasted just 6 hours. Mars colony was reclaimed with minimal human casualties. When news reached the Galactic Council, silence fell across the chamber. Xandar spoke again. "As I warned, the humans are not following conventional warfare patterns. They're adapting, learning, and using the Zathraxi's own assumptions against them." For the first time, the council members began to pay attention. On Earth, celebrations were brief. Everyone knew this was just the beginning. The Zathraxi Empire spanned hundreds of star systems. Earth had won a single battle. But now they had hope. Kreltek sat in his cell on the human space station, watching the medical staff through the clear barrier. Unlike other prisoners, the Zathraxi officer hadn't expected torture or execution when captured. He had expected to be processed according to Imperial protocols: interrogation, information extraction, then disposal. Instead, the humans had treated his wounds, provided comfortable quarters, and even offered him books to read about their culture. It was deeply unsettling. A human female entered his cell area. According to her badge, she was Medic Sophia Clark. "Your neural patterns show you're experiencing pain," she said, checking the small device. "I can provide medication if you wish." Kreltak studied her. "Why do you care about my comfort? I am your enemy." Clark shrugged. "You're my patient first, enemy second. That's how we work." This made no sense to Kreltak. In the Empire, enemies were to be crushed, not cared for. Yet he found himself accepting the medication. On the battlefront, Lieutenant Greg Patterson led his squad through the wreckage of a Zathraxi forward base. His 12 soldiers moved with practiced precision, using tactics that confused the alien defenders. "They expect us to attack in formation," Patterson told his team during the mission briefing. "So we won't. Harper and Juan, you're setting false heat signatures here and here. The rest of us will approach from 6 different directions. They won't know where to focus their defense." The strategy worked perfectly. The Zathraxi soldiers, trained in traditional battlefield formations, couldn't adapt to this seemingly chaotic human approach. Patterson's squad captured the base with minimal casualties on either side. Back on the Zathraxi homeworld, Emperor Zorkath slammed his fist against the throne. "Explain these failures," he demanded of High Commander Vexthor, who knelt before him. "How can primitive humans defeat the greatest military force in the galaxy?" Vexthor's scales had dulled with stress. "My Emperor, I have been studying their history. These humans, they have been fighting each other continuously for thousands of years. Their military doctrine is built on endless adaptation. Are you saying they are better warriors than the Zathraxi?" The Emperor hissed dangerously. "Not better, sire. Different. They fight like they have nothing to lose, like every battle might be their last. Our troops are trained for organized warfare, but humans excel at chaos. In Earth's primary defense center, the quantum AI system called HFY processed vast amounts of battle data. Dr. Franklin monitored its predictions. "HFY says the Zathraxi will attack Europa next," she reported to Admiral Reynolds. "They're trying to cut off our water supply for the Mars rebuilding effort." Reynolds studied the projection. "But their forces are gathering near Venus." "A diversion," Franklin explained. HFY analyzed 500 years of human military history and found patterns that match current Zathraxi behavior. "They're using tactics we abandoned centuries ago." Reynolds smiled grimly. "Let's show them why we abandoned those tactics." When the Zathraxi fleet arrived at Europa, they found no resistance. This seemed suspicious, but they proceeded with their landing. Only when half their forces were on the surface did they realize their mistake. Human ships emerged from hiding spots in the ice crevices, cutting off escape routes. Meanwhile, Captain Olivia Martinez had escaped from Zathraxi capture and was leading a small team of humans and liberated slaves on a raid against an Imperial supply depot. Her experiences as a prisoner had taught her much about Zathraxi weaknesses. "Their hierarchy is rigid," she told her team. "If we take out the command staff, the rest will be momentarily paralyzed waiting for orders." The raid succeeded beyond expectations. Not only did they destroy the depot, but they also freed 300 slaves from various species. In the Galactic Council, news of the raid caused significant debate. Council member Xandar again addressed the assembly. "The humans are not just fighting for themselves," he noted. "They're liberating other species and forming alliances. This is no longer just a Zathraxi problem. This conflict could reshape galactic politics." For the first time in centuries, the powerful council members felt uneasy. They had dismissed the humans as a minor nuisance to the natural order. Now they wondered if they had gravely miscalculated. Major Eric Turner looked out from the bridge of the EDF Valiant at the massive Zathraxi military installation orbiting the gas giant. The station served as the Empire's primary staging area for attacks against the outer human colonies. Taking it would change the course of the war. All ships in position, his second-in-command reported. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. They haven't detected us. Turner nodded. Signal all vessels. Operation Thunderstrike commences in 3, 2, 1. 20 human warships decloaked simultaneously, their weapons already locked on key structural points identified by intelligence. The first salvo hit before the Zathraxi could raise their shields. Press the advantage, Turner ordered calmly. Focus fire on their power core. Back on Earth, scientist Heather Nelson rushed into Admiral Reynolds' office without knocking, her eyes bright with excitement. "Admiral, we found it. The flaw in their shield technology." Reynolds looked up from the holographic battle map. "Explain." "The Zathraxi shields operate on a frequency modulation that shifts every 3 seconds. But there's a millisecond gap during each shift. It's tiny, but if we time our weapons to hit precisely during that gap." Reynolds immediately opened a quantum communication channel to all fleet commanders. "This could be the turning point we've been waiting for." On the front lines, human ships began implementing the new targeting protocols. Suddenly, weapons that had been merely denting Zathraxi defenses were penetrating them completely. The Empire's technological advantage was crumbling. In desperation, the Zathraxi High Command authorized the use of biological weapons against Earth. A stealth vessel approached the planet, carrying engineered pathogens designed to target human DNA. Dr. Vanessa Mitchell, head of Earth's Biodefense Division, detected the unusual readings just in time. Her team worked around the clock, developing countermeasures. "The Zathraxi don't understand human medical science," she told her exhausted staff. "They don't know we've been fighting diseases our entire existence. We've survived plagues that killed millions. We won't fall to their engineered viruses." Within 72 hours, her team had created a nanite-based countermeasure that neutralized the Zathraxi bioweapon. The attack failed completely. Meanwhile, Commander Daniels led his Special Forces team deep into Zathraxi-controlled space. Their mission: contact other species conquered by the Empire and offer them alliance with Earth. The Novan, blue-skinned humanoids who had been under Imperial control for centuries were the first to join. Then came the insectoid Vrax and the crystalline Lumari. Each brought unique technologies and knowledge of Zathraxi systems. Admiral Reynolds coordinated from Earth Command, using the quantum network to direct simultaneous attacks across 12 star systems. The Zathraxi, used to fighting on 1 or 2 fronts, found themselves overwhelmed by the multi-pronged assault. "The humans fight like no species we have ever encountered," reported the Zathraxi intelligence director to Emperor Zorkath. "They adapt faster than we can develop countermeasures, and now they have allied with our subject races." The Emperor's rage was terrible to behold. "We are the Zathraxi. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We will not be defeated by primitives." But his words couldn't change the reality of the tactical displays. The Empire was losing ground on every front. The Galactic Council could no longer ignore the conflict. A delegation of observers was dispatched to assess the situation firsthand. What they saw stunned them. Human soldiers fighting alongside Novan warriors. Vrax engineers helping upgrade Earth vessels. Lumari healers treating wounded from all species. This was not just resistance to the Empire, it was the formation of something new. Council observer Trelnar sent an urgent message back to the Council. "The humans are not conquering in the traditional sense. They are building a coalition of equals. Species that have hated each other for millennia are now fighting side by side under human coordination. I believe we are witnessing a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics." On the bridge of the Valiant, Major Turner watched as the Zathraxi station's defenses finally collapsed. The first major push into Imperial core territory had succeeded. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "The path to the Zathraxi homeworld is open." The news spread through the Zathraxi capital city like wildfire. Human forces had breached the Empire's outer defenses and were advancing toward the homeworld. For the first time in living memory, the citizens of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy faced the prospect of becoming the conquered rather than the conquerors. Emperor Zorkath gathered his remaining advisors in the Imperial Sanctuary, a massive chamber carved from a single gigantic crystal. His scales had darkened to an ashen gray, a sign of extreme stress among his species. "How long until they reach our system?" he demanded. 10 days at their current pace. "Your Magnificence," replied the Imperial strategist. "Our remaining fleets are regrouping to make a final stand, but—" He trailed off, unwilling to complete the thought. "But what?" Zorkath hissed. "But reports of rebellion are coming in from 12 formerly loyal systems. They see our weakness and are following the example of the humans' allies." On the command deck of the EDF Dauntless, Commander Peter Daniels studied the tactical display with his team of human and alien officers. His Special Forces unit had grown into a multi-species strike force. "The Zathraxi are massing their remaining ships here," he explained, pointing to a star cluster. "They're preparing for a traditional last stand." A Novan officer clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Which means they still haven't learned. They expect you to meet strength with strength." Daniel smiled grimly. "And we won't. Prep the stealth runners. We're going straight for the Emperor." Back on Earth, Admiral Reynolds presented the final phase of the war plan to the United Nations Security Council. "We can end this with minimal further bloodshed," she explained. "The Zathraxi expect us to destroy their homeworld or demand unconditional surrender. Instead, we'll offer terms that protect their civilian population while dismantling their imperial system." President Warren nodded approval. "We're not interested in revenge or empire building. We want security for Earth and freedom for all species." In orbit around the Zathraxi homeworld, Lieutenant Kate Williams, now commanding her own squadron, led the decisive space battle that would be remembered for centuries. The Imperial fleet, still fighting according to traditional doctrine, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. "They're breaking formation," Williams reported as Zathraxi ships began to flee. "Their command vessel is vulnerable." Within hours, the space around the Zathraxi homeworld belonged to the human-led alliance, but rather than bombarding the planet as the Zathraxi expected, Williams ordered her ships to hold position. "This isn't about destruction," she reminded her pilots. "This is about ending the war." Meanwhile, Commander Daniels and his strike team had penetrated the Imperial Palace using stealth technology and the inside knowledge of former subjects of the Empire. They encountered surprisingly little resistance. Many Zathraxi guards simply surrendered when confronted. In the Imperial Sanctuary, Emperor Zorkath looked up in shock as Daniels and his team entered. "Impossible," the Emperor whispered. "How did you get past my defenses?" "You still don't understand us," Daniels replied, lowering his weapon. "We don't follow rules of engagement you recognize. We adapt. We find another way." To the Emperor's surprise, Daniels didn't kill him. Instead, he presented terms of surrender drafted by the Earth government. "Your civilian population will be protected. Your culture preserved. But the Empire ends today." In the Galactic Council chamber, an emergency session had been called. The topic, what to do about the humans. "They've defeated the undefeatable," said Council Elder Mograth. "Should we unite against them before they turn on us next?" Xandar, who had warned them about underestimating humans from the beginning, spoke carefully. "I have studied their actions closely. They've shown remarkable restraint in victory. They haven't destroyed conquered worlds or enslaved populations. Their quarrel was with the Empire, not its people." "And if they come for us next?" asked another counselor. "Then we would be wise to remember the warning they gave the Zathraxi," Xandar replied. "They told them to run. The Zathraxi didn't listen." As news of the Emperor's capture spread across the galaxy, the mighty Zathraxi Empire began to dissolve. Systems that had been under Imperial control for millennia declared independence or requested membership in the new alliance forming around Earth. The war that everyone had expected to end in Earth's destruction had instead reshaped the galaxy. and it had done so with far less bludge than anyone could have predicted. Captain Olivia Martinez adjusted her formal uniform as she prepared to enter the Galactic Council chamber. 1 year had passed since the surrender of the Zathraxi Empire, and today Earth would be officially recognized as a major galactic power. "Nervous?" asked Admiral Reynolds, who stood beside her. "A little," Martins admitted. "I'm a soldier, not a diplomat." Reynolds smiled slightly. "That's exactly why you're the perfect representative. You've seen the worst of conflict and still chose mercy. The Council respects that." The massive doors swung open, revealing the circular chamber with hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy. The noise died down as Martinez walked to the central podium. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice steady. "I come before you not as a conqueror, but as a neighbor. Earth does not seek dominion over others. We seek partnership." In the Medical Research Center on former Zathraxi territory, Dr. Alan Foster worked alongside the Zathraxi scientist Kreltak. Their unlikely partnership had begun during Kreltak's time as a prisoner, where his observations about human compassion had challenged his imperial conditioning. "A cellular regeneration is responding to the treatment," Kreltak noted, examining the results of their latest experiment. Foster nodded. "This could help victims of the war on both sides. A joint medical breakthrough. In the Empire, we would have kept such technology for ourselves," Kreltak said quietly. "I am beginning to understand why you defeated us. Your strength comes from sharing, not hoarding." Foster smiled. "Cooperation is humanity's secret weapon." On the Zathraxi homeworld, the Imperial Palace had been transformed into the headquarters of the new Zathraxi Confederation. The former Empire's subject worlds had voted to form a democratic alliance, with each planet having equal representation. Commander Daniels watched as the new governing council held its first session. He had been assigned as Earth's military liaison during the transition. "They're adapting faster than we expected," he told President Warren via quantum communication. "Their society is transforming from within." "And the former emperor?" Warren asked. "Zorkath has accepted his role as a ceremonial figurehead. He seems almost relieved to be free of imperial responsibilities." In Earth orbit, Admiral Reynolds oversaw the establishment of the Interstellar Defense Initiative headquarters. Ships from 24 species now train together, sharing technologies and tactics. "The Lumari crystal drive integration is complete," reported Lieutenant Williams, now a key officer in the Joint Fleet. "Our ships can now travel 3 times faster than before." "And the Novan sensor arrays?" Reynolds asked. "Installed and operational. Nothing will sneak up on us again." Reynolds nodded with satisfaction. The alliance was growing stronger by the day, each species contributing unique strengths. In the Galactic Council, Martinez concluded her address to thunderous applause from many delegates. "Humanity does not come to impose our ways on others," she said. "We come to share what we know and learn what we don't. Our history is filled with conflict, yes, but also with reconciliation and growth. We invite all peaceful worlds to join us in building something greater than any single species could achieve alone." As she stepped away from the podium, even former critics nodded with respect. Earth had done what no one thought possible: defeated a seemingly invincible empire, and then refused to become one themselves. On Mars, a memorial garden bloomed where the colony had once stood. New domes now protected a thriving settlement, twice the size of the original. At the center of the garden stood a simple stone monument listing the names of those lost in the first attack. A young girl placed a flower at its base. "Were you scared when the aliens came?" she asked her mother, who had survived the evacuation. "Yes," her mother answered honestly. "But we learned something important that day. Humans are stronger than anyone thought, not just in fighting, but in rebuilding and forgiving." In a secure facility on Earth, High Commander Vexthor, now a prisoner of war, received a visit from Captain Martinez after her return from the Council. "I don't understand," he said as they sat across from each other. You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you? Martinez regarded him thoughtfully. Because that's not who we are. We fight when we must, but we prefer to make allies rather than corpses. Vexthor's scales shifted color as he processed this. We should have heeded your warning to run. Perhaps, Martinez replied. Or perhaps you needed to stay and learn this lesson. The galaxy is changing, Commander. The age of empires is ending. What comes next will be built together, not imposed by force.